business owners, are you stuck or have you been stuck in your business and trying to figure out how to get to the next level? You've read all the books, you've listened to all the webinars online from all the gurus teaching you on how to be successful in your business, many of which have never actually even owned a business. Then you need to listen to this episode. You need to pay attention. I've got a business coach on here who's been through it all, who's owned very successful businesses and lost businesses and has come back stronger than ever. And his focus is on helping other business owners succeed from a position of having been there, done that, and to understand from an empathetic standpoint. Pay attention, listen in, and I think this will be super valuable for you. Hey, welcome listeners and viewers. Today, I have the distinct honor and privilege of hosting Michael Morrison on the show. He's the founder and CEO of Boss, and he focuses his time and energy helping business owners grow and succeed. And so I'm going to let him tell you all about that. But before we get into that, welcome to the show today, Michael.
Thank you, sir. It's an honor to be here. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Always love to talk to entrepreneurs and learn from them, and then entrepreneurs that are helping other entrepreneurs and business owners succeed. Not only do you have your own challenges growing a business and have had that, I'm sure, over years, but you get to see it magnified with all the different people you work with. And so you bring a special level of wisdom, I think, today, right?
I don't know about that. Sometimes I feel more like a therapist than I do a business coach.
Yeah, I think there's probably a lot of therapy there for sure. No doubt. I know I certainly could use it from time to time. So let's start off real fast before we get into specifically what you do and how you help. How did you get to the place where you are today as an advisor, consultant, coach, and someone who helps business owners succeed?
Well, I'll start from birth, and it won't take me that long. I just have an interesting story that created this madness of insecurity that led me to be an entrepreneur. And I was kidnapped by gunpoint by my biological father as a toddler. And so that kind of led a life of insecurity, being an introvert, not trusting people. And that's how I grew up. And then I started adulting after college.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
See, you can't blow through that.
Well, I was trying to get through the Reader's Digest version.
No, that's good. And we won't go on, but literally kidnapped at gunpoint. And is there any so that's a yes? I mean, this is not, you're not.
No. I was born into a domestic abusive family, and my mother tried everything she could to do to protect us. And she finally took us to her dad's house, which was my grandpa. And the story is that he broke out of prison or got out of prison, came over, kidnapped her firstborn son, which was me, and took off across the states. And they caught him, of course. But then after that, she had no other choice than to put us up for adoption. And back then it was kind of a private adoption. Yeah. It wasn't something that was public because they didn't want him to find us. And so we kind of had an alias, or went under an alias last name, if you will, in case he was out looking around the schools and things like that. So we kind of grew up in it wasn't a sheltered life, but it wasn't very exposed. We did get to see her and her side of the family from time to time, Christmas, birthdays, things like that. I don't know what the legalities of that was, but we did get to see her from time to time. But I just recall each time that we saw her and the family, we always had to take a different route. We could only meet her halfway, never in the same place. And then when she picked us up, same thing. So that's what I mean by kind of an introverted life, sheltered life. So that kind of carried over into school of not being very feeling confident, because I was living a lifestyle like that at home. Yeah. And so I was kind of that quiet kid in class that teachers were worried about, not that I was going to do something drastic, but just that he's thinking something and we can't try to figure it out. Like, he's real quiet. He's always really focused. And what I always tried to say, until they sent me to therapy and they tried to tell me something different, was that I was sizing people up. do I trust you? Do I trust you as a teacher? Do I trust, and I didn't know, I was too young to really know all that. And something that I learned, because in my uh, side job, if you will, of hobbies, I like to study neuroscience. And so
Hmm.
I know that most people don't remember things earlier than 4 or 5 years old unless there was a traumatic event. And so I kind of
Mhm.
remember riding in a police car, and I don't remember all the details. I just remember chaos.
Mm.
And so in my head, chaos was always going on. And so
Okay.
having lived that life, being an average student, never a lot of self confidence, things like that. When I got to adulting and got to an age, I was like, I'm not married. I don't have kids. No one in my family owns a business. So, you know what? I'm just going to step out there and try to control my own life, because everybody had controlled mine before that
Hmm.
due to that circumstance. It was always an ongoing thing. When I mentioned that, therapists and things like that, they took us to counselors, and I'll never forget, won't say his name. I was 5 years old. I remember his name. I remember the office, the chairs, the colors, everything. And he said, draw your family. And so I did, drew my family. And he asked my adopted parents, which I now call my biological parents, my parents, but
Mm.
he asked them to come in and for me to step out. And then he asked me to come back in. And he said, I think we have some issues, challenging issues here. And he said, why didn't you draw yourself? And I said, you didn't ask me to draw myself. You asked me to draw my family. And I did.
Mm.
I did, so I kind of grew up with that analytical side of me going, what are people really wanting from me? How do I decipher this? Are
Mm.
they trying to trick me into a question? Because when you go to anyone that's gone to counseling like that, they all of a sudden you start doubting the intent of the question. And so that was the life that I lived. And so
Mm.
that's what led me to the entrepreneurship was, you know what? I'm getting out of working for other people. I'm going to go control my life, or at least try. And that's what started this whole thing. And back in the 90s, I started my first business. So at the time of this recording, that's well over 2 decades ago, and wasn't very successful until I hired a business coach, and
Mm.
he taught me the typical cliche of working on your business, not in your business, and everything changed. Everything. And I wasn't fulfilled anymore because I was like, I got this now. Well, just as soon as I said I got this, that company went bankrupt due to a cancerous partnership. And so,
Mm.
anyways, one of my original coaches that I had from the very beginning back in the 2000s had mentioned that, have you ever considered being a business consultant or coach? And I said, I don't know that I'm qualified. Don't you have to have a license or certificate? And he said, well, you've got the ultimate certificate. And I asked what that was. And he said, you've actually owned businesses. So he said,
Yeah.
most business coaches or consultants have never owned a business outside of their consulting agency. And I found that to be really true to this
Yeah.
day. So he said, you've got the criteria there. He said, your educational background is marketing. And then we use what's called DISC assessments, which are personality, behavioral, expected, traits. And I've also taken some other assessments. And in those assessments, my biggest character trait is empathy. And he's like, you check
Mm.
all the boxes when it comes to, you can relate to the business owners, you can cry with the
Mm.
business owners, you can get mad with
Mm.
the, because you've walked in their shoes, you've done what they've done. You've also been on one side where most small businesses are, where they're stuck, they're working 80 hours a week. And you've also been on the other side of working on the business, having a large business of 80 plus employees and multi-million-dollar business. And so you check all the boxes. So I tried to keep it at the Reader's Digest version, and then you asked the question. Now it's a novel. Great job.
No, it's just interesting. I mean, this adds a lot of color to what you do and a lot of context to it. And, a lot of people, my wife and I talk about this a lot, that, a lot of people, they see the finished product, but they don't understand the challenge or the struggle or the process that people go through. And everyone has issues and struggles. Some are better at either overcoming it or hiding it or whatever, but we all have something that we have to deal with and grow through. And it seems to me that when you own a business and you grow a business, you really puts you in an environment where you have to sort of face some of these things, and you may not know why. Why do I keep getting this result? Why does this keep happening? Where do I keep hitting the limit here? Maybe it's with employees or delegation or whatever the issue is, but there's generally something coming from the inside that's limiting or coloring your activity. And when you own a business, there's generally not a safety net. And so you're putting it all out there, right? And there's a lot of risk and opportunity. So interesting that you had that. And so you learned to deal with it through then, and you became a coach through all of this. So take us forward from there. I mean, what's been, where are you now, and what's the mission for you?
Yeah, I appreciate that. When I first started, I didn't know what I was doing because I didn't know what a business coach really was, other than what I had experienced through my experience of business coaches. And so I didn't really know specifically what type of coach I wanted to be, because when you have a company of the size that we did, we had sales coaches coming in, we had leadership coaches coming in, executive coaches. And so, the first few years were kind of rough because I didn't really know what I did. I just knew that I knew a lot about taking a business from chaos to organization and profits. So, but I also knew that no matter how high you get in business, you can also come crashing down real quick. And I learned that through a business partnership. So the first few years, like I said, were pretty rough. No one really got what I did because I couldn't really explain it. I just kept saying, I can help you. I promise I can help you. And they're like, well, how can you directly help me? And I'm like, I don't know. Let's just start talking and we'll figure it out. So that was kind of an experience in itself, which led me to understand that one of the biggest problems, being on the empathetic side, I coach from empathy and not judgment. And coaching from empathy, I realized that, probably one of the biggest reasons that small businesses struggle is they don't have clarity. Just like myself. Here I was trying to be a business coach. I knew what I was trying to do, but I didn't have clarity to where I could share that with others so they understood what I did. And so that was kind of the first discovery, walking in my shoes and everybody else's shoes. And once I discovered that small businesses need help, and they don't need help really, it's more that they need hope. And so using a phrase that my church uses, to be a voice of hope, I thought, that's really what small business owners need as well. So I can take my Christian life and apply it to my business life and be a voice of hope in more ways than one. So I incorporated business coaching and life coaching, because one of the things I noticed was, as a small business owner, we don't have as many resources as corporate does, whether that be legal, CFOs, controllers. We also have a life. We have kids. And when I started actually getting clients, because they finally understood how I could help them, because I had clarity now, what I realized was a lot of the older generation was reaching out to me because they missed out on their entire life. They were working the 60 plus hours a week, missing out on their kids' upbringing, missing out on their wife. Some of them, their marriage is in, havoc. And so they didn't have a business that was worth anything. Here they are, 55 plus 60 years old, and their kids don't want it because they didn't want to do the same thing to their kids.
Right.
And the business isn't worth anything because they are the business. Without them there, the business isn't worth anything. It can't operate. So again, more clarity. And so that's when I started incorporating, because we had also used I invested in some personal development coaches. So I kind of added that element too. And so when I started, I didn't have clarity. Now I do. So business, life coach. I don't do one and not the other, because I think they're both aligned. I think there's synergies in both. I think you've got to discover this is where I feel like there's kind of a myth to work-life balance. I don't know that work-life balance applies to a business owner, a small business owner. I think it has to be integrated. I think they integrate. So you got to find how can you not shut off the business and have a family life too, and vice versa, because we're kind of like that what would you say, emergency room doctor. Like you're on call 24/7, right? The alarm goes off in the building at 11:30 at night. Guess who has to go there? The business owner, which means you're going to have a long night. You're going to be sleepy the next day, not be able to help with the kids in the morning, whatever. And so being able to understand what small business owners go through is what really increased my passion for being a business coach.
Mm-hmm. So, okay. So you took you a little while to identify sort of clarity for yourself because you lived it, but then now how do I translate that into value to deliver to these business owners and entrepreneurs? And you said the one of the first things that your sort of aha moment was clarity for yourself. And you see that with small businesses. I mean, talk a little bit about what are some of the common challenges that you see when you talk to these business owners. I mean, you said clarity, you certainly can go deeper on that. I know there's a lot of, there's a lot of marketing speak and there's a lot of noise out there, right? For everything today, more so than ever. Back in the day when you're talking about working on your business, not your business, well, everyone referred to the E-Myth and Michael Gerber and all that. It was kind of like a seminal text and very, very good. But now everybody's got their own version of the E-Myth, right? And they've got their little twist, and you got your AI and you got this and that. And literally every day, us business owners are getting, if not 100, multiple hundreds of emails, about this, that, and this shiny object. And, but one thing that does seem to me to be important and coming up, and you're talking about clarity and empathy and really getting identity, is maybe identifying what it is who it is we serve, right? We can't serve everybody. And we can't do everything for everybody. So you figured that out for you. Is that one of the common problems you see? And if so, can you elaborate? And what are some of the other ones?
Yeah, so my educational background is marketing, and that was kind of another element that my original business coach had said, you've got that trait as well. So when a company goes to grow and find that clarity, you can at least help on that side as well. So it's kind of a bunch of elements, but to kind of put it in a nutshell, I'd say the number one thing holding a business back is the business owner, right? So the business owner starts a business. He or she is a good electrician, plumber, whatever trait that they have. But they've never run a business. So their first thing is to get sales. They go get sales. They can't handle the sales. So they need to put cheeks in the seats, as I say. They just need a body to answer the phone and do this. Then they get frustrated because that person's on their phone all day, not answering the phone. And they're like, well, so now invoicing in to get done. So I hire a bookkeeper. Next thing you know, they have a daycare, right? They have a bunch of people on payroll. They're overstaffed. Their expenses are more than their revenue. And so a lot of times what I find is the business owner is the problem, where they don't let go early enough. So they don't delegate. They don't learn to delegate. And they've never built the business to be a business. They built the business around their skill sets. And therefore they feel like they can't let go because no one can do it as good as they can, right? That's what every business owner says. And I'm like, let me just crack 101, the myth to you that there are people that can do it better than you. So you just have to find them and you have to be ready for them. And I hear that as one of the challenges. And so what that leads to is two things. One is they end up with their business being stuck. And I hear this from so many small business owners, like, my business is stuck. I've read all the books. I've watched all the videos. You mentioned E-Myth, which those are great books. There's several other out there that are #1 bestsellers that are along that same line of creating a framework and a system. The problem is it doesn't incorporate your life either. None of those do. It's just the business. And so the more you get involved and dive into the business and learn the framework and everything, you're right back in that business again. But you're missing out on this social, the spiritual, all the other aspects of life. And so they end up with a business that's stuck. And the reason it's stuck is because they run out of bandwidth. When somebody tells me my business is stuck, it's been stuck at this level for 2 years or however long, I'm like, you're out of bandwidth. There's no more there's no more hours that you can put into this. You can keep you can keep hiring more bodies, but that's not going to solve the problem because you're
Mm.
still in the business. And I like to tell startups, I'd say probably other than hiring an accountant first as your, or an assistant as your first hire, I'd say the first thing you need to do is think of who I'm going to get to do this versus how I'm going to do this. So if I'm starting a landscaping company, I don't go, well, I can mow 10 yards a day. That's 50 yards a week. Because now you have no time for admin. You have no time for paying bills. You have no time for hiring. You have no time for training, onboarding, getting more sales. And that's how most business owners start, is they think about their bandwidth. And next thing you know, they've filled that bandwidth and they can't do anything else. So that's probably the number one challenge I hear, is their business gets stuck and they don't know how to get unstuck. And then the second one is they desire to have a business that works without them. I hear so many small business owners that they're stuck in the office and they cannot leave. And when they do, it falls apart. Problem after problem. It's like, we do this every day and I leave for 3 hours and you can't remember what to do. So those are kind of the two biggest challenges I hear from most small businesses. And there's multiple ways to address that. And that's why I'm like, a book is a good thing. A book, in my opinion, is a reference. It's a thing to pull out some nuggets, but never, and I know these book people will debate me on this, but never should a small business owner follow those chapter by chapter by chapter, because you may not need chapter 2. And I know a lot of small business owners that don't have the business experience like you and I do. They don't know that. They just go, well, it says chapter 1, do this. And before you start the next chapter, here's 5 action items you need to do. And then they do chapter 2, chapter 3. They get to about chapter 4 and they're like, nothing's changing. Well, let me buy the next book or watch the next YouTube. And they learn all this stuff, but it's not applicable. It's not in applicable pieces to where they can go, okay, I need to do this first, then that, then this. And, so they're learning good stuff, but it's just not applicable in the season of business and life that they're at. And so that's why they get stuck. That's why they don't have a business that can run without them, because a lot of the stuff they need immediately to relieve them. And one of those is delegation. I think you mentioned that earlier. So on our website, businessownershipsimplified.com, we have a free delegation quadrant. It's a workbook. It's about 15 to 20 pages that can help them discover what are those key things that I need to delegate first to relieve me. Because one of the questions I ask or get asked is, Michael, I already work 10 to 12 hours a day. I've got a family at home. I have no time to work on my business. How do I do that? And the first thing that I always say is, we got to find something to delegate, something to relieve you. That's something you can't find in a book. Right. That doesn't teach you, unless you buy a book on delegation. But in those business frameworks, that doesn't teach you. They don't teach that stuff. And so that's why I kind of integrate life and personal development, business development, and things like that. So delegation really helps with that. And then that will relieve. Now, I caution business owners. I was like, now that doesn't mean you've got 2 more hours per week because you're not doing this specific task. That doesn't mean you go to the golf course, right? So we say, what are we going to do with that 2 hours that's working on the business? And that's how you start transitioning into working on your business. That's probably one of the most areas of the business of, I work too much already. I don't have time to work on my business or even have coaching. So that's the first thing we do to kind of get them some time and some freedom.
Well, let's unpack a little bit of that. So, and I want to get back to your website address when we finish and make sure that's clear to everybody. But we talk a lot, we throw it around, this working on versus working in, and this idea of delegation. Define that a little bit. Let's come up to 30,000 feet. Is what am I working on my business to do? I mean, what am I, I understand if I'm working on the car or working on, something, but working on my business, that's what I do every day. That's why I'm a plumber with a plumbing company, and, I'm in there and I'm fixing toilets and doing all this. What are you talking about?
The easiest definition that I've found to be able to say is, if you can pay someone to do that, that's working in the business. So if there's a workforce out there for instance, a landscaping company, if there's a workforce out there that can mow lawns, pull weeds, that's working in the business. That's your business model. Working on the business is strategizing with your marketing team, finding clarity. Now, working on the business, there's numerous ways to do that, but it's things that you can't hire someone else to do hourly, basically. It's something that takes your brain to say, this is the kind of company I want to build. This is the kind of culture I want to have. This is the strategy. You create. Most small business owners don't even have a North Star. Like, they don't even know where they want to go with their business. Do they want to grow it, hand it off to kids? Do they want to scale and sell? Do they want to bring on venture capitalists? What do you want to do? Most of them don't even know that. So you're working on that bigger picture of what do you want this business to look like?
So we're trying to build to that. And someone said to me a long time ago, which I think is true, and what you're describing is a lot of us want to let somebody else do all the thinking, right?
Yeah.
But if you're the business owner, really it's up to you. I mean, isn't that the work that we do, right? To think you're creating this entity, and you can hire the guy to cut the grass or the gal to cut the grass, but you're not going to hire the guy to help you or to create the business, because if that's the case, they're just going to go create their own business, right? At the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, and
so go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just going to say that the freedom that you have as a business owner to think freely, to use your time freely, not everybody is equipped to be a business owner, and that's okay. I know so many people that have come to us and they're just so frustrated and they want to be a business owner so bad. But you know what? I wanted to be a rock star so bad. I wanted to be in front of 20,000 people. I love being on a stage.
Yeah.
But you know what? I can't sing. I took my guitar playing as far as I could, and it was not to be on stage. So there are just some things that we have to realize that it's just either not in our skill set, our DNA, or maybe it's just we're not passionate about it enough. So for a lot of business owners, I'm like, have you ever considered working for a business owner kind of as their external brain, kind of like their right-hand person? You and I, as business owners, I'm always looking for somebody that wants to be empowered like a business owner, but without all the responsibility. There's lots of people out there like that because they love what they do. I work with a cabinet countertop company, and they have a business full of those types of people, but no one really wants to take the lead. And that's fine. Right. We'll go find somebody that can do the lead. So I just sometimes with small business owners, I'm like, maybe you're trying too hard to do something that you really don't want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you get into the question of, why do you really want to be a business owner? Right. And I'm sure you drive more deeply into some of those questions as a coach. I know I've had coaches over the years and done some coaching myself, and it's trying to get to the bottom issues and the motivations. And it seems to me too, it's one of the things that I think you're saying is people get stuck when they come to you because it's hard to see the forest if you're in the trees, right? And wouldn't you say that? And they just need an objective third party to say, who understands business, but can look back and you're not emotionally involved. I know you're empathetic, but you're not emotionally involved. Right. You're not in there turning the widgets or whatever, or meeting the customers or dealing with employees, but you can see objectively around the corner and what's going on to help bring that back to the clarity issue. Maybe not on the vision of the business, but the clarity of maybe why there's some sticking points or why things aren't working. That the business owner, you're just in there day to day. You're making the donuts every day, trying to do it, reading all the books. Your point, doing all the seminars online, and maybe spending a bunch of money, on the new secret magic bullet that that never works.
Right. There's lots of those.
Yeah, there's lots of that. Most of it, right? I mean, absolutely. It's vaporware. There's if one thing the internet has brought to the world is, what a vehicle for the modern day con person to get out there and really just separate, people from their money. And us business owners are the biggest suckers of all of them, right?
Yes,
We're like,
we
oh,
are.
well, that'll make my
Yeah.
business a lot easier. I don't have to deal with that. You mean I'm not going to deal with employees? I can push this button and it handles it all. It's like, sign me up. How much is
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, exactly.
And then, and then you realize, however many months later that, well, that was just another red herring that doesn't solve the problem because it comes from within, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so for those that's never had a business coach, from my personal experience, I kind of like to share just a minute or so of what a business coach is there for.
Yeah.
And a lot of
Yeah.
times people don't know. They've never had one, so they don't know what to expect. So they don't know really what they're looking for. And a lot of business owners I've talked to, they've had a business coach and they're like, that was the biggest waste of my money. And I'm like, well, did you even know why you were getting a business coach, what you were looking for? So some of the popular questions are, have they ever owned a business? That would kind of be my first question. And the second is, what size, and basically the next set of questions, wherever you're trying to get with your business or whatever problems you're trying to solve, you're basically trying to see if that business coach has ever experienced that. So, I mentioned bankruptcy due to a implosion of business partners. So what I did after that is I deep dived into what makes successful business partnerships and how I would do it differently than then. And I've done it differently than then. So that shows that how you took a problem and you resolved it, or maybe some red flags. A business coach is really not there to guide like step by step to tell you what to do. Cause I've had business owners, why would I hire somebody to tell me what to do? That's why I quit my job. And any business coach, a good one, should not be telling you what to do. What they should do is be bringing maybe 3 to 5 options, or have you thought about this? Have you considered this? Have you asked Miss Betty about that? You're talking about changing her role over here. Well, what if Miss Betty isn't a good fit for that? Have you thought about that? What you would do? Would she quit? What would happen if Miss Betty, you said she was your key employee and now you're changing her role. You're pulling the rug from underneath her feet. What if she leaves? What's going to, so, and it's not just a Q&A. It's also guided. Most good business coaches, we do have a general framework. Like I know, for instance, guiding principles have to be part of a successful business, which is kind of like the North Star I mentioned, your mission statement, your vision, your strategy, all those things of where are we going so we can make a plan to get there. Systems and processes and people. And people is not just your employees. It's your banker. It's your accountant. It's your vendors, your suppliers. Who are these people? Are they equipped to handle the kind of business that you have right now? Are they too big, too small? So there's some general things in a framework that most business coaches, we all know, and we kind of follow that path. But along the way, we also address these other issues of helping you think better and faster, because most small businesses or the owners have never owned a business before. So they don't know these things, which goes down to my last point of, we don't know what we don't know. Yeah. As business owners, we don't know what we don't know. So that's kind of, if you were thinking about AA or something like that, it's like the first step is self-discovery, right? So if I'm a business owner and I go, you know what, I'm tired of trying this, why don't I just call somebody like you or I? And they've already done this. They haven't done everything, but they could expedite my journey so much faster with helping me avoid those road bumps or those red flags or whatever things that are coming up that I've never experienced, that I don't even know is coming around the corner. And so that's really what a business coach does, a good one.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. I'm with you. I think those are great questions. And I've had, like I said, had coaches over the years, and it's something that can really be transformational, and you're never gonna ask the question. Well, I'll say you're never, but a lot of people just will never ask the questions themselves. They don't know the questions to ask. To your point, right. I don't know what I don't know. And so you just bang your head against the wall where, instead of going into the wilderness for 40 years, you can make a 12-day journey.
Yeah.
With some guidance and some help and some insight. And it doesn't mean that all your problems are solved, but it seems to me that with the right coach and someone who cares and is committed and involved, that they can help you identify the issues that may be the most important things, that if those are addressed, then, 80-20, the rest of it just kind of all goes downhill from there. Right.
Yeah.
Instead of majoring in the minors and poking at the symptoms and not identifying like the true causes of what's really at the root of these things.
And that's what all leads back to clarity. Finding that clarity. You can't find clarity in a book. That's just a general educational framework, which is good stuff.
Right.
Like I said, it's all good stuff, but it's not good for small business owners that are being pulled in all directions. And like you mentioned it just now, and that is when a business owner calls us and says, "Can you help with this?" I go, absolutely, because I know that this, without asking any more questions, I know whatever this is, that's not the root of the problem. That's the symptom of a problem. And there's probably more symptoms like it that can help us dive deep in, because they just want to know how to hire A players. I get that asked all the time. Any keynote speaking event that I go to, they're like, how do we find the good employees? And I'm like, well, to be honest, if you can't find the good employees, you're not ready for them.
Yeah.
Right. That means because good employees don't want to work for a crappy company. They don't want to work for a company that's disorganized, chaotic. They can spot that a mile away. When you don't return phone calls, or you say, hey, come in for your interview at 11, and they get there and nobody even knew they were showing up. And, just the typical stuff. Good employees don't want to work for a company like that. They want to go and perform. And so, so when they call and say, how do I find good employees? That tells me that they don't have good employees for them. They're probably good employees, just not for them. But that's not the root of the problem. So we get to, okay, let's revisit, get into your organizational chart. What are the roles you need in your business, the functions, the descriptions? Let's create a hiring process, an onboarding, retention, those types of things. You're not going to find that in a book, So that's the difference between a coach and some of the other things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like you go to the doctor, generally, most of us do, if there's an issue, instead of going to the shelf and pulling off the physician's desktop reference, right, to try to figure it out. Although WebMD has created a lot of self-diagnosis out there, right? And good, and sometimes questionable, but anyway, you might be wrong on the diagnosis, but anyway, it's a lot cheaper and faster until it isn't, right? So, well, this is great. Well, so Michael, tell us, is there any particular type of business that you like to help, or business size or whatnot, or how can we get people in contact with you?
Well, I feel from my past experience, if it's a small business owner looking to start a business, all the way up to about 100 employees, up to about 50 million in annual revenue, I feel those are kind of my sweet spot. I can really relate. A lot of times, anything over that, they usually have venture capitalists, investors, a board, things like that. And I like to work really directly with the business owner. If they have a kind of a C-suite team, a small one, I meet with business owners that their leadership, their direct reports meet with us also. But I really like to help the small business owner. And then the types of businesses are more of your service, manufacturing, contractors, things like that. I do a few, but not many e-commerce. But again, e-commerce, they mostly have venture capitalists. There's some type of investment backing the platform or something like that. So just kind of your typical grassroots small business owner that wants to grow, and they have to have that desire, and they also have to have the desire to learn and improve and be challenged, which a lot of small business owners do. And then a lot of them don't. They're like, I'm just perfectly happy where I am. And I would say, then you probably don't need a business coach. Just keep being happy, because that's right. The bigger you get, the more problems you're going to have.
That's right. Challenges. That's right. And you're as a coach, you're not going to want to work with that person anyway, because you don't want to beat your head against the wall.
Yes, absolutely.
It's you got to work with people that really are seeking help and desire. All right. So give us the contact information again, your website and whatnot, your digits. How do we get up with you?
Yeah. Businessownershipsimplified.com is the website. And you will see, any people that visit there will see that we do small business loans. We do business coaching. We have online courses. We have numerous things there that we're always adding to. We kind of want to be the Amazon, if you will, for small business owners. So we're going to be adding promotional products, staff, all the things that a business owner would need to continue growing their business. And we're basically following the business model that I followed to grow my most successful business. And in those order, the first thing that I had to have was a good coach. Second thing I had to have was funding. Next thing was this, next thing was that. So that's what we're building on, boss. That's what people will find. As far as social media goes, LinkedIn, I'm very active on there. That's where you can actually talk to me. On Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, those are just kind of branding placements. And then my email is michael@michaeldmorrison.com.
Michael D as in David Morrison.
That's it.
.com. Awesome. Well, great. Well, this has been a lot of fun and super helpful. Hopefully there are some folks out there that recognize the need or they've known they need a coach, but this will push them across the line to say, hey, let me reach out to Michael because I need some help and I want to get this thing moving faster, get unstuck.
Yes. I love that. And, I know a lot of people offer free consulting and things. We do too. On the website, you can do a free consultation tab at the top right-hand corner. And that is actually scheduling on my calendar. It's not with any of our other staff. It goes straight to me. So we can have a 30-minute to an hour conversation. And it doesn't have to be just about me and what we offer. I mean, I actually help them and then they can discover, wow, that was helpful. Let's meet again. So that's kind of how we get the ball rolling.
Got it. Kind of your first taste of what a coaching experience might be like.
Exactly.
That's awesome. You also host a podcast, Small Business Pivot, which is a great show. I know you're focused on major changes that people in pivots and very challenging experiences they went through and recovered from. So that's a great resource as well. So hey, look, I appreciate you being on the show today. This has been a lot of fun. And if you hold on, we hit stop. I'm going to chat with you a little bit offline.
All right. Well, thanks for the opportunity. This was fun. I hope it helped somebody today.
Hey, gang, just winding down here today. Thanks for listening to the show. And as always, if you need capital to grow your business, you're looking to purchase commercial real estate or build a building or invest in commercial real estate, or you're looking to acquire a business or a competitor or just need growth capital, we'd love to talk to you. We fund businesses all day long. Our mission is to help entrepreneurs win and to fund their businesses and fund their dreams so that they can make an impact in their community. Reach out to me today. Go to our website, click the button to schedule a 20-minute conversation, discovery call. We'll have a quick conversation, see if there's a need, see if there's a fit, and we can take it from there. The website is VPC, Victor Paul Charlie .capital. That's VPC.capital. All right, there's no .com on that. It's VPC.capital. As always, keep crushing it and hope to see you soon around here. Take care.